Maka's guides.
Hey guys, Maka here, and welcome to my Game of the Year video for 2019. I'll count down my top 10 favorite games that I've played. Now, obviously, I haven't played every single game. If a game that you like is not on my list, I either didn't play it or I didn't like it as much as you, and I just have a different point of view, which is totally fine. You can leave your favorite games in the comments down below. I've been doing a Game of the Year video for many years. I think I started in 2013, so it's cool to take a look back at some of the old videos. Nonetheless, before getting started, I did want to make a quick mention of my favorite movie of the year. I've never talked about movies on the channel, but writing little mini movie reviews on Twitter is something I've really enjoyed doing in the past couple years. So feel free to follow me on there if you think you might enjoy them, although most of my tweets are video game related. Nonetheless, the best movie I saw this year by a long shot was Parasite, and I highly recommend it. Go see it if you can. Now let's talk about some video games. Also, before getting into my list, I should probably mention a couple of my biases, which is something that most reviewers don't do. I know that I tend to like first-person shooters, I know that I tend to like racing games, and I also know that I tend to not like RPGs and action games as much as other people, so you might want to keep that in mind as you look through my list. Additionally, I really like to pick cool, unique, exciting games that are at the top of their genre, instead of having a list of 7 games that are all in the same genre. I like my Game of the Year list to give you a taste of a little bit of everything. Starting off my list at number 10, I have The Outer Worlds, which is a big statement coming from a guy who isn't the biggest fan of RPGs, but I can definitely appreciate all of the things that this game does well. Now, the thing that I most appreciated in this game was kind of the old school back to basics video game design. There's a story, you start it out, it's single player, you don't have to worry about servers, you get in there and you start playing and you play until you're done, and that is the game. There is no season pass or DLC, and even if that stuff does come, it doesn't feel like you have to be there to experience the game in its entirety. Instead of overcomplicating the formula by adding all these crazy new features, they decided to double down on the features that already made old Fallout games great and make them even better. At the end of the day, it ended up being a little bit of a safe game, but because we haven't had a game exactly like this in the genre in quite a while, it was a game that people wanted, and they delivered on that promise. That gets a big thumbs up for me, and I'm very excited to see what this studio can pull off for Microsoft in the future. Next up on my list is A Plague Tale: Innocence, another game that goes back to basics but executes it perfectly. This game came out kind of out of nowhere. There was a little bit of hype around it, but then when it came out, I was very pleasantly surprised, and as were most people who gave it a try. A fantastic single-player game with great storytelling, environments, level design, stealth, and set pieces, a mysterious story that you're following along with and wanting to learn more about, and overall great graphics and design, which was really nice to have. This game also felt a little bit safe, and I'd love to see them take a couple more risks when they follow up with A Plague Tale 2 at some point in the future. On top of that, I really like what this game represents. A smaller AA studio with a small budget and a smaller team being able to focus on a project and deliver the best possible game considering all of the circumstances surrounding the studio. And I'm a really big fan of that concept. I hope we can see more small studios use this approach to find success with their game. Next up, we continue our theme of simplification and talk about Ace Combat 7, a game that kind of focused on one thing but did that one thing incredibly well, with a great lengthy campaign that had a lot of variety, a great soundtrack as well, and the return to an old beloved genre in flight games. I talked about this game quite a bit in my underrated games of the year video and my hardest achievements video, and I don't really have anything else to add, so you can check those videos out. But Ace Combat was a very surprising game to me. I didn't really expect much out of it, but I got a lot more than I thought I would. I enjoyed myself throughout the entire campaign and even tried a little bit of online. The controls are really great. I would highly recommend playing in expert controls. The graphics are good, and the overall game design is really great. I just had a fun time playing this one, honestly. The next game on my list, which may be surprising to some, is Apex Legends. I don't play a lot of games for more than 100 hours, but this was one that I did, and this game came out of literally nowhere and disrupted one of my favorite genres, which is Battle Royale. And what I think it did well was it took all the bad parts about games like PUBG, Fortnite, and Blackout and just fixed them. It added a ping system, which we look back now and might not be a big deal, but just a couple of months ago, this was something that was pretty innovative and revolutionary for the shooter genre. And maybe it lacked a little bit of staying power, but I still think it has some great timed events going on, even as recently as Christmas 2019. Fortnite was also kind of running away with the popularity in the genre, and I think it's great to see a game kind of come out and challenge that a little bit. Not to mention, the best part of the game was that it was completely free to play, and no one really knew it was coming out. It didn't leak, so as soon as it kind of launched, everyone was fair game and got a chance to try it out day one. The controls feel great in this one, the gunplay is phenomenal, there's a lot of weapon variety, and the map was overall well designed, and they have been making changes to the map over time to keep it fresh and exciting as well. Overall, I think they've done a phenomenal job with Apex Legends, and I'm really happy that this game came out this year. Next up, we have Metro Exodus, which was my #1 most anticipated game of the year, and a game I was hoping would be my game of the year. Unfortunately, it fell flat in just a few areas. However, it did do a lot of things extremely well. We got incredible graphics, good audio design, and an atmospheric game like no other. We had a game that blended both action, stealth, and survival in an immaculate way. I feel like they also took a risk to take the game to the next level, and although not every decision paid off, it was a very ambitious game, and I like when devs try new things for their series. They also made big leaps in things like lighting and weather, in my opinion, and hopefully some of this technology can be seen in future games. I would highly recommend trying to get through this game. It is very different from a lot of the other shooter campaigns you'll play, and not just because of all the kind of technological advancements on the surface either. In at number 5, I have the most unique game I played this year, and that was Sayonara Wild Hearts. This game is an audio-visual masterpiece in my opinion, and although it only lasts 1 hour, I would highly recommend you play this one if you want a taste of everything video games can offer. If you had to put this game in a genre, it's technically a rhythm-based game, but I would probably classify it more as an interactive CD endless runner. The way the game works is that every level is based on a song, and every level kind of works like an endless runner, but it kind of assaults your eyeballs with pleasure instead of being a basic and simplistic game. Now, I will admit that your enjoyment of this game is going to be very dependent on whether or not the music in the game is your style of music, and if you don't like it, you probably won't like the game. But in my opinion, this was a fun one and a game that I have on Switch, and I load it up every single time I travel as an excuse to give it another go. I currently have all of the levels gold medaled, and I don't really see myself stopping anytime soon. In at the number 4 position, I have Call of Duty Modern Warfare, primarily for its single-player campaign, but it also offered a lot of value. I think the story was great to start off, the graphics were really well done, and the story it told was a little bit touchy, but I think it did a really good job depicting some of the horrors of war. I kind of like the idea of a game making you feel somewhat uncomfortable for some of the decisions you have to make, and that was something that this Call of Duty did quite well. The campaign overall wasn't very long or very difficult, but I think it was very memorable and did a lot of great set pieces to kind of give the illusion of variety, which really helped in this case. On top of the really great campaign, we also got a Spec Ops mode, which I think people have been kind of sleeping on. I played this one with a couple of buddies, and it was a couple of hours of a really great time, and I highly recommend trying it out. And on top of all of this, it obviously has the patented Call of Duty multiplayer experience, which this year I enjoyed, but I also had some problems with, and I think the community kind of shares that same sentiment. I mostly found myself playing things like Gunfight, which was completely new to the Call of Duty series, and I also went back very recently to play Shipment, and they've been doing a really great job updating this game and keeping it fresh and exciting with new maps and new game modes. So they've gotten an A+ in my book, coming in at number 4. In at the number 3 position, I have Gears 5, which I think is the best bang for your buck game out there, as long as you enjoy Gears 5. First off, you can get this one in Game Pass, so a super low barrier to entry. And not only does it offer a campaign, it also offers a multiplayer, it offers escape mode and horde mode, and a map builder. So that's just a lot of content straight out of the gate, which is a giant plus. Not only that, but the campaign itself is really great. It is a good length. It has a decent amount of variety in the environments, and they've changed things up to kind of keep it a little bit fresh and exciting for the Gears of War series. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Gears multiplayer, but luckily I did really enjoy the escape mode, which I thought was a great added bonus. Now, unfortunately, the game launched with a lot of server issues, and that really took away from my personal experience, and I think unfortunately it did for a lot of other people as well. Right now the game runs pretty well and there aren't really any server issues, but I do think the community has a little bit of a gripe with some of the character unlocks and progression. Hopefully they can figure all of that out and send this game into 2020 on a good note. For number 2, I have Sekiro. I had a really hard time deciding between this and number 1, but I decided Sekiro was the second best game I played this year, and one that kind of surprised me, as with a lot of games this year. I played this one thinking that Dark Souls wasn't really my thing, and I didn't really want to play a game that was impossibly hard. But what I found out about Sekiro when I played it was that it was challenging, but not frustrating. The controls are tight, and all the mechanics make sense. You never feel like you die because of something that's out of your control, and that is the type of game that I love. Also, the design of the world with all these little secrets, nooks and crannies, and shortcuts between areas. I really like that style of game design. I think it lends itself really well to making you feel like you are learning as you play and making you feel like you're becoming better and better. Also, the addition of the posture meter was very welcome. I think the idea of being aggressive but being able to quickly parry is a lot better than trying to dodge every attack, and I think it lends itself better to good gameplay. I also like the idea that the game didn't really have any difficulties. It's interesting that when you talk to someone else who has played the game, you know for a fact that they experienced the same game as you, and I think that kind of has a little bit of a community building aspect and allows you to feel proud for what you accomplished. Sekiro is a phenomenal game in plenty of ways, so I'd highly recommend you check it out if you can. My number 1 game of 2019 is none other than Resident Evil 2, and this is a phenomenal game from back to front in every single way possible. Now, some people will call this game a remake. It's not really a remake. It is completely different from the ground up to the original that launched many, many moons ago, but it does nail certain aspects of the game that make it feel a little bit outdated, but in the best way possible. For example, with the animations feeling a little rigid and with the controls feeling a little clunky, it adds to the horror and suspense of the game itself. Not to mention the amazing graphics and the visual art style of the game. The sound design is also really well done, and the campaign is well structured. The game also has a ton of replayability, with all these little modes that are unlocked after completing the game, and the ability to replay the game as Leon and Claire and having slightly different stories, as well as things like hardcore mode and infinite ammo as little modifiers. The game also finds the perfect balance of reward and challenge, which is great, and there is a really great and creative achievement and trophy list, which is not something we see very often anymore. Also, this game does great at bringing it back to basics, a common theme amongst 2019 Game of the Year contenders. They took what many believe to be the golden age of gaming and then built based on those mechanics. Instead of doing research to try to figure out what gamers would like, they just took an already proven formula and executed it perfectly. And that's why Resident Evil 2 is my number 1 game of 2019. As for my commentary on the year of 2019, I do think it was a pretty weak year, and I think we'll get a lot more games hitting that 90 Metacritic in 2020 when the big guns come out to play. And hopefully we also get a lot more innovation. As I look through my top 10, although there are a lot of great games in 2019, none of them really did anything innovative, and that's kind of what gets me most excited in the video game space. If you want to hear more about what gets me excited, tune into my most anticipated games of 2020 video coming soon. I would like to thank you for watching and for helping me have an incredible year here on YouTube. In 2019, I've gotten the most views I've ever got, and I've also gotten to work with some of my dream brands like Xbox, Seagate, and LG, and without you guys watching, none of this would be possible, so thank you so much. Drop a like if you so desire. Subscribe if you want to see more content in the future. A super special thank you to everyone who's helped support the channel on Patreon this year. And a shout out to 00. I'll see you soon in the new year. Peace.